Hey everyone, it's Carlos PC747. Welcome to the channel. How does an airline pilot fly off course? Well, there can be many reasons. The first clip is a departure deviation to the south instead of to the west in an A330 like this one from Los Angeles Airport.
Sierra 621 heavy, turn right, heading 270 immediately.
Straight ahead?
270, that was 620.
American 4, traffic, stop your altitude climb.
Not here.
American 4, traffic heading to your left, 1 mile climbing out of 1,500.
Here's one of the ways this can happen. You have either a passive pilot or an active pilot. An active pilot is one who is ahead of the aircraft and prepared to act in advance the moment something goes wrong, like flying off course and correcting immediately. Whereas a passive pilot is just enjoying the view, the sights, taking off out of Los Angeles like this pilot did, receiving a call from air traffic control, asking him to make an immediate turn and going, I wonder why he wants me to make that turn. In other words, not paying attention to what the aircraft is actually doing. Some pilots set things and then forget things because they feel they don't need to double check. They've already done the hard work before they took off and it's just time to relax. When complacency replaces caution, mistakes occur. Many airports utilize SIDs, standard instrument departures. They are great because they negate the need for controllers to issue extra long clearances. It's both airlines' pilots' jobs to make sure that the SID is not just programmed in the aircraft correctly and armed. It's also their job to stay ahead of the aircraft so that if it's not complying with the SID, to intervene immediately and take corrective action. Sometimes airline pilots put in the wrong departure SID. That's actually easier to do than you'd think, especially when they start with the same letter. Another causal factor can be when the incorrect runway has been selected for departure. This can happen pretty easily at large airports like Los Angeles, where they issue you a runway change just minutes before departure. So another causal factor could have been if the correct runway was not selected before the aircraft took off. Another causal factor is when passive pilots trust what the flight director is telling them to do, even when it's not appropriate. I've had several occasions out of Los Angeles where the command bars rolled right after takeoff when we were supposed to go straight for 5 miles, and the flying pilot just followed it blindly. Following flight director command bars blindly is one of the fastest ways to get a checkride failure. Depending on the autopilot system and how old the aircraft is, some command bars will burble, that is, go from wings level to full deflection to the right or to the left temporarily before the wings level off again. Why? This is because when aircraft go from ground mode to flight mode after takeoff, some flight directors are influenced by that change, and pilots need to remember that.
Docker 850 Sierra X-ray, wind 0605 RNF Docker, runway 25 right, clear for takeoff.
That's exactly what happened to this crew out of LA.
Departure 850 Sierra X-ray with the 2000 for 5000 via the dot 2.
There's something really telling that I need to share with you about that last short clip. The corporate flight crew contacted departure and said that they were flying via the DOTS 2 departure SID. They weren't flying via the SID at all. They weren't flying straight like they were supposed to, although they told departure that they were. The green line shows the route they should have flown. The red dots show the route they were actually flying. Since the aircraft's mode was in roll mode and not navigation, the flight director rolled to the right and they followed it blindly. This is what can happen when you don't double check like you're supposed to, but more importantly, when you're allowing the aircraft to do something it's not supposed to do. Immediately after departure, what that really says is, where's your head been when the aircraft's flying someplace it's not supposed to go?
Delta 979 heavy traffic, turn right heading 271.
collision prevention,
Right turn 271, open 270.
instructions.
K50 X-ray tower.
The tower was calling because they wanted an explanation for the deviation. Incidentally, this is an ARTS radar display similar to what the LA controller was utilizing to prevent a collision. On a steam gauge aircraft, the command bar is the yellow triangle that turns from side to side and moves up and down. On Boeing and Airbus aircraft, the command bars are the green lines. Having the correct clearance entered is certainly important, but as important is verifying what the aircraft is programmed to actually do. The green items above depict what's actually active. The white items above depict what will be active. The blue data are performance parameters that have been selected. The lack of command bars means the flight director has not been turned on. I actually witnessed an aborted takeoff in a 747 when we were departing out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, when the flying co-pilot realized that their flight director was not on. That is not a reason to abort a takeoff, and they got in a lot of trouble. The other reason they got in trouble was they actually grabbed the throttles and aborted. But with this particular airline that I used to fly for, the co-pilots are not allowed to grab the throttles and abort. That's a captain function only. Here's another example of an airline crew departing San Francisco that thinks that they're complying with a departure SID, and they're not complying with it at all. And the controller is having to intervene so that there's not a collision. This departure SID, the aircraft is supposed to fly straight ahead to 520 feet above the ground. Then it's supposed to make a right turn to tie-dye before proceeding to trucking. But instead, the aircraft turns left. And when the controller asks him why he's where he shouldn't be, the pilot just blindly replies that he's complying with the SID, and he's not.
1152, how'd you wind up over there?
We're on the trucking. San Francisco Tower, good day, Turkey 790 Kilo Heavy.
Do you remember how earlier we discussed a passive pilot and an active pilot? What type of pilot do you think was departing out of San Francisco that day? I'll tell you, I think it was a passive pilot, because an active pilot would know immediately not to allow an aircraft to turn in a direction contrary to what it's supposed to be doing at all. Whereas a passive pilot wouldn't even really be paying that much attention to the direction that the aircraft's turning and would just continue on their merry way, and then they would get a call from air traffic control wondering why are they going someplace they're not supposed to be going. In this final example from Phoenix Airport, the aircraft to the north has put the wrong departure SID into its flight management system, and it is flying south instead of flying straight ahead and then turning to the north. When air traffic control asks them what departure they are on, they initially say the correct departure, but in fact correct themselves and tell air traffic control they are on a different departure, and then a traffic conflict occurs with the Southwest airplane to the south. It's very easy to put in the wrong departure SID, and if you're not careful and you don't double check your actual clearance, this can happen. In case you don't know already, the vast majority of airline companies do not have their pilots copy clearances over the radio. Instead, they receive their clearances via ACARS. It stands for Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System. The departure type is clearly depicted here. Older ACARS systems will look like this in green. The 747s that I flew had these older displays. The departure runway and SID is clearly shown. One way of eliminating this problem that continues to occur worldwide would be integrating an automated system right into the flight management system, where pilot input wouldn't be required. They would only have to verify whether the cleared route is in fact correct and just activate it. However, airline unions would never agree to such technology because the basis for pilots' existence requires their active participation. If you like this video, let me know. like and subscribe, and thanks so much for watching.